Hi, everybody. I have a big treat tonight. A long-lost friend that I've seen only in the last couple of years, who's an amazing guitar virtuoso, Paul Gilbert. Paul Gilbert is an American rock guitarist. He's best known for being the co-founder of the band Mr. Big, also a member of Racer X, which quickly became the diamond standard of the dueling metal guitars. Paul has been voted one of the best GuitarOne magazine's top 10 greatest guitar shredders of all time. He also is ranked in Guitar World's one of the fastest guitarists of all time. I met Paul many years ago when he walked into metaltronix to have his Marshall modified. Please welcome my friend, Paul Gilbert.
In the key of B. Lee, it's great to see you.
It's great to see you too, Paul.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I am, I hate to say this over again, but it's been so much fun researching what my friends, because you're my friend. I've known you for many years.
Yeah.
And there's so many things I don't know until I go looking. And it was really fun. It was fun to see all the stuff that you've done and how busy you've been. And, it's awesome.
I'm still trying to get it right somehow. So that's why you don't stop, because you just sort of look at your old stuff and go like, no, I got to fix that. So I'm still working on it.
Well, it's all, I'm going to jump around because it's too hard to be, in chronological order or whatever. But like I said, I remember when, remember the gates that were across the front of metaltronix that we could, to keep the local riffraff out, I remember when you shook those and we came out and opened them up for you, and you walked in, you had I think a 50 and 100 watt head, and you set them down. And at that time you were brand new to Hollywood, and we didn't know about you, and nobody really knew about you. And you said, hey, I want you to do these. And we built them. And then, like customary in that front area, you had to play them before you left, right?
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that white Dean back there is the guitar that you tested them on.
I remember that one. Yeah.
Remember it hung on the wall there? I still have it. And everybody was sitting around going, they were blown away, right? Because your playing was not normal to any of the style. I'm serious. I think the only person that at that time that was even playing like that was Akira from Loudness.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But nobody knew who Akira was. And the thing is I equate this to when you hear Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page or Eric Clapton talk about when Jimi Hendrix played for the first time and they walked in and they went, well, I'm not going to play guitar anymore. Because I remember hearing from remember we were building for everybody, right? And I was hearing that in the background going from these guys going, oh no. Because, come on. You came out of nowhere, basically, from the East Coast and came into Hollywood and just killed it. So it was such a joy to build your equipment and to have, to be part of that early on with, well, actually it started with Black Sheep, right? I think that was one of the first records
that was it where I found the first head that you had done.
Right.
Was Willie, the lead singer and bass player of Black Sheep, ran this rehearsal studio. And, we would rehearse there because that was his place. And then a lot of times when we would be getting ready to rehearse, there'd be another band that would be tearing down their gear. And I just remember this guy, I don't remember his name was, but he was, in the band that was tearing down the gear. And I'd shown up early, so I heard him play a little bit. I was like, man, your amp sounds great. Can I check that out? And, it was Marshall Head. And I'm sitting there playing it, just going, oh, man, all my, what it was I had just kind of sussed out how to do this certain fast picking things. And I didn't have a practice amp in my apartment. So I would just sit there acoustically, and just like hit the strings real hard because I was, trying to be able to hear it without an amp. And so I had developed this this technique that was like really, really aggressive. And then when I would plug into an amp, it would sound terrible because I hadn't developed the technique that way. I'd developed it almost like for an acoustic guitar,
right,
kind of style. And somehow the way that your mod compressed the guitar sound, it worked.
That's right.
That was like the only thing that I could play that lick through.
Right.
And suddenly, magically, it sounded good. I'm like, oh, this is it. My lick sounds good.
Right.
And it doesn't sound good through my amp, but through your amp, it's good. And I said, what is this? And he goes, oh, the Lee Jackson guy did this mod. And and I was already curious about mods because obviously, Van Halen,
right.
There was all kinds of rumors about he had done some mysterious thing to his head. And even my dad, back when I was in Pennsylvania, would find schematics in guitar magazines and go, oh, we can put a master volume in. So, I already had this idea that you could take, a store-bought amp and do something to make it do what it had never done before. And so, again, the idea of making this lick that was just ripping without an amp and actually have it work.
Well,
was very appealing. So that's when I came down to the shop. Is like, you got to do that magic for me.
Well, it's funny here. I found because speaking of your dad, we'll jump just to the metaltronic. Here's some piece of history.
Oh yeah,
the Mel Bay Rocket that originally started with your dad, and you sent it to me after your dad worked on it, and then I rebuilt it into. I get so many emails about this amplifier that people going,
it's a good, handsome logo, isn't it?
Isn't it great? No, I loved it because people don't know, but we were back in those days, we'd have fun. Like you'd be drawing on them, or I'd make you a special pedal, like the cheesy, whatever it was I drew a piece of cheese on it. And, there was all just to try to make these.
No respect for the, original.
No, it was all to have fun, and
to make it your own, like how can I kind of customize this to make it, make it so nobody else can have that sound.
Yeah, but as you were talking about it, made me think about it because your dad absolutely, and he would, because I remember that amp, he that was kind of like his play amp, and then you sent it to me and said, hey, can you rebuild it? And I built it into this, and it's great because, like I said, it's got its own life. People out there.
The legend of Mel Bay Rocket.
Yeah. Just, this was a fun time because as you're seeing here, that we did that photo shoot with you and Zach, and that was some fun time because it was just an exciting time. There was new music. There was the stuff going on with Racer X, which you were doing. Let me find a Racer X thing, because you were doing Racer X and that was exploding quickly for you. Here's an early Racer X picture.
Well, right across the street from your shop was the country club where we'd play.
That's right.
The standard thing was like, a stop at your shop to pick up whatever was new modification we had, and then head across the sound check.
That's right.
Test it out, and then rock it for the gig.
Well, if anything blew up, you knew, okay, we go across the street. One day, this is a side note. One day we hear the chain rattle on the front gate, and I walk out there, and it's Uli Roth in all of his, garb and turquoise, and he's there going in his very broken English, fix Marshall. Because I guess what happened is something burned out across the country club, and he brought the Marshalls over, and we worked on him right there, give him back to him to go do his show. But the country club was right across the street, and here's an early shot of the Racer X. And that was great because I remember those early days of you painted your cabinets. This was what was interesting is, on a side note, as you see in that middle picture with the drill, Billy was on a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about the Makita drill, because a lot of people don't realize that you were using drills back really early on, and because you used to come over and I would put the picks on the end of the of the dowel rod, remember? That was
there was some research and development trying to figure out how to get them to stick on there. It's that other picture with all the cabinets. That reminded me that when I was a kid, I would go see Van Halen and Judas Priest, and bands that would have walls of amps behind them. Right. And I just assumed they were all plugged in. I thought, well, I didn't know that that really they're using like one cab and then the rest is just for show. I was fooled. So when I started setting up my rig, I went at it like, we've got to plug them all in.
That's right. You had them all plugged in.
And so we were just ferociously loud. It was, and plus we had a thing with a loud button.
Right.
Because with metal, the rhythms, you wouldn't like turn down your guitar to play the rhythm. You'd keep going full blast.
Right.
On the rhythm part. And so, Bruce and I were struggling because, you couldn't hear the solo because the rhythm's so loud. And so I came over and I said, like, can you put like, 2 master volumes and a switch between them
and get louder
so we can have, this loud setting for the solo.
That's right.
And the idea was, when one guy's doing the solo, you hit the loud button, and the other guy doesn't hit the loud button because he's doing the rhythm. But then we would do a harmony solo, and so there's no rhythm guitar, and so really we could leave it the same, but we would both hit the loud button, and it would just destroy people with volume. Having both loud buttons at the same time, it would just suck the air. It would knock the air out of you.
Yeah, but how much fun? Loud. Isn't it fun playing loud? I mean,
it was. It's funny doing so much teaching. Most guitar players, me too. You start in your bedroom and you play at bedroom volume, and it's a whole different feel and a whole different like level of control, like controlling the string noise and stuff than the bedroom volume.
Right.
And the metaphor I always use, it's like there's building the ship, and there's putting the ship in the ocean and seeing if it actually will float. And survive a storm.
Right.
And so when you're playing in your bedroom, that's like, oh, what a nice little ship I've built. It's like, okay, well, let's see you run it through the Bering Straits or whatever the dangerous waters in Antarctica, and see if it holds together than that. That's what playing loud is.
Well, the thing also that we discovered, starting to build a lot of live rigs, is that distortion, when you're at home in your bedroom or a small rehearsal room, you want a lot of distortion because you want to get the volume down. But when you're on bigger and bigger stages, you use less and less distortion because the PA system, everything becomes part of your sound. You know what I'm saying?
The room.
Yeah, a heavily distorted. I remember when I went and took some amps to the guy in Y&T, McKetty, and we showed up with these super, super high gain amplifiers, and then he plugged it into their massive PA system, and it just sounded like mush. It was, really same thing. I remember on a quick note, because we were being asked by everybody under the sun at the time to build rigs, and I got contacted by the AC/DC, right, and they invited us down to the forum, and we were there early in the afternoon, and they wanted modified Marshalls, and I said, well, play through the rig, and he's playing through the rig, and I'm listening to everything, and I said, no, I'm not. There's nothing to modify. You're by the time you go through your wireless system, and you're driving the front end, and then you're cranking the amp up, and then you're going through 100,000 watt PA system. It's AC/DC, And one other band that was like that was the Scorpions. Same thing. I said, no, there's that sound for them is their sound. I mean, it no reason. So I just as a side note, I was just saying that, super distortion sometimes is not the way to go if you're playing that loud, that kind of loudness. But anyway, so jumping back, were you in high school bands? Did you put a high school band?
Oh, yeah. My first band, I was 11 years old.
Okay.
And I had a Fender Vibro Champ.
Oh, awesome.
Which is not really 6 watts, and I think it's got an 8-inch speaker, and it's a nice tone, but it's you're not going to compete with a drum kit, with that size amp. And I think I was the only, like, there was another guitar player in the band, and he didn't have an amp, so we would both plug into my amp. And then we also had a singer or two, and we didn't have a PA, so we had like 2 microphones, vocal mics, and 2 guitars all plugged into my little Fender Vibro-Champ. And of course, when whoever's loudest sort of takes over and it blocks everything else out. So it wasn't great, but somehow we managed to strum through some Beatles songs. And finally, I got a PV Deuce, which just never sounded any good, but at least it was loud. It had 2 12s, and it had a phase shifter built in. And we did it. Don't Come Easy. It don't come easy, and the phase shifter sounded, that made Leslie, but it had that swirly something.
Yeah, that made it. So did you play at any like the high school parties or that kind of stuff? Is that?
Everything. We played as much as possible. The first, when I was 12, I joined a band, and it was funny because they had a sign up. Back then there's no internet, so to join a band, you go to the music store and look at the bulletin board.
Right, that's right. Yeah, I remember.
And there was a sign said, wanted lead guitar player, must be at least 13. And I'm like, damn, I'm 12. What am I? I thought, well, how they're not going to ask for ID.
Right.
So I lied, and I called them up, and I said, oh yeah, I'm 13. Can I come over? And I came over, and they let me join the band because I could play all right. And we did we played the senior high school, and I remember we did "We Will Rock You," this Queen song, but nobody could sing it. Because that's Freddie Mercury. Trying to sing like Freddie Mercury is not
right, of course,
no small task. And so there's not much else in the song. It's just a boom, boom, da, boom, boom, da, and Freddie. Some guitar at the end, but exactly. And so I played the Freddie part.
And that's awesome.
And it somehow worked. And but yeah, there were so many. My first kind of good sounding band I was about 14. By that time I had an Ampeg V4.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which sounded horrible. Like the distortion, natural distortion of the amp was no good. It was a good clean amp.
Yeah.
So I had a Electro Harmonix Screaming Tree treble booster and a Hot Tubes.
Okay.
And that into the Ampeg V4 actually sounded really good.
Yeah.
And my homemade 412 cabinet with Celestians that my dad built, and the drummer had a blue Vistalite kit, and the drummer could sing really well too. Like looking back on it now, I mean, what a gold mine that guy was. He could sing like the Brian Johnson AC/DC parts and play drums at the same time. We had a bass player. He had a V4B head, like an SVT cabinet, and we would cram into this tiny little room and play like "School's Out" by Alice Cooper and "You Shook Me All Night Long" by AC/DC and UFO and Rush and just we had like 5 songs we knew. We just play them over and over and over again. But we had a good groove. The band sounded pretty good. And we started playing some Robin Trower stuff.
Right,
that's Day of the Eagle, and then we got a new drummer, so our singer could only sing, and that drummer had like the little bongo drum, so we could do Rush stuff.
That's right.
We did the whole 2112, although our singer couldn't do that, so we just sort of do it instrumentally.
Right.
But we did the whole 2112, and with a
right.
And we did a lot of Van Halen because I was really into Eddie, but we never sounded any good because the drummer would play it like Neil Peart.
Right.
And Neil Peart sounded, that style is great for Rush, but the hi-hat would be too tight for the Van Halen stuff.
That's right.
He would never slosh it out. He had like a moral misgiving about having a sloshy hi-hat. So any music that wasn't like if we needed a he would just be like, I can't bring myself to do that. And
well, Neil Peart music only works for Rush. It anytime, because I one time
it's
played
like having a modified head. Like only you have that.
That's right. It's right. No, I'm serious, because I played with a guy one time that was a complete Neil Peart guy, and it just you can't groove into what you.
Yeah, it's great for the Rush song.
It's perfect for the Rush songs, and so what made you come out to Los Angeles?
Probably the spark of it was my mom took me to started to take me to colleges, because it was, I'd almost graduated from high school,
right?
And so she's like, well, let's go check out this college and this college, and I hadn't, I mean, I'd been putting in the time. I was passionate about being a musician, and to me that meant playing music. So I was just concentrating on playing, learning songs, playing in bands. That was my whole world. And then suddenly, when my mom started like, well, we're going to go to this college, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I got to think about the business here for a second, because I remember walking through the chemistry lab at Johns Hopkins University, and terror struck through my heart. And I'd been a good student, because given the choice between, I'm there, you got to go.
That's right.
So I'm in school. I thought, well, given the choice between I can't play guitar here, so I might as well pay attention. And so some things were interesting, but my passion was music. I would hang out with the musicians, but anyway, I had good grades, and in theory, according to my report card, I could go be a chemist, but I'm a musician. So I had seen the little ad in Guitar Player magazine for GIT, the Guitar Institute of Technology, and so that was, of course, interested to go to a guitar school, but it was more to not go to a regular university.
That's right.
Because I had sort of had enough of academia. It's like, okay, I've done that, because you have to go. It keeps my parents happy. I'm a peaceful kind of guy that likes to get along,
right?
So I'll do it. But it had gotten to the point where it's like, no, I can't do calculus anymore. I need to put in the time, and this is my thing. So I went to GIT, and which was great. And there were, I mean, actually having that background of going to high school and having done well in the math classes paid off in the theory classes. And I'd had some music theory. This always surprises me. I went to a regular public school. They had music theory as an elective, so I'd already had 2 years of music theory in high school. I don't know why they offered that. If it was gonna,
right?
Unless you're, that's not like a thing that's useful for most people's lives. But they had a music theory class, and I took it, so I was familiar with the staff. I was never a good sight reader, but at least I spent time with the staff. And I got it there, and from day one I did well, because the sort of hard brainy classes like music theory, I already had some prep, and that wasn't a big problem. And then it was just nice to be able to play all the time.
Well, you quickly went from student to teacher there, where you became one of their staff.
The course was only a year long,
right?
So but I was young, I was just 18.
Yeah.
And I'd already started giving lessons on my own, just in my apartment. But I knew, because my parents, during the year that I was a student, they had been sending checks to help me pay the rent and stuff.
Right.
But we never really talked about it, because it never became an issue. But I got the sense that they're not going to send me rent checks forever. It's at some point I'm going to have to do something, or go back and be thrown into the chemistry lab.
Right.
So I thought, well, there's that Burger King down, across, a few blocks down. That could make some money, or maybe I could teach at the school, and it was like a day before I was going to go to the school and ask them if there was any openings available, that they called me. Oh, and they said, would you be interested in teaching? And I think they had primarily jazz teachers,
right
there, and because Eddie Van Halen, Warren DeMartini, and all the Randy Rhoads were popular, they needed more like heavy rock players.
That's right. Yeah.
And so, I was at hand, and, I had a teacherly personality in a way, so it fit well. I didn't, so some of the things I actually got fired from the single string class because I was going too crazy in it, and the students were complaining, but mostly I did all right.
Well, no, it was great because I mean, obviously, you also had a quick what is it called? Equipment purchasing syndrome. I mean, you want equipment, right? It costs money, so you have to make money. But yeah, well, you're saying you like to teach. That quickly went over when you started doing instructional videos. With that, I forgot the name of that.
Intense Rock, or the company's REH.
Yeah, the ones that made the VHS tapes, right? Yeah. And that was where, if anybody remembers any of that stuff, that's where you got to be really creative. Like when you had the mariachi bands calling out the numbers, and it was you've always shown a really attention to detail for teaching, right? I mean, not just here's my lick. It's like you really went through to try to help people to really learn what you were doing and to learn the instrument.
Well, part of it was, I still wanted to be a rock star. So
of course.
So I was choosing material that would allow me to show off. Right. And the first priority is like, how can I just be as awesome as possible and advertise that? Right. And then number two, this is billed as an instructional video, so somehow I have to work within that structure, and it kind of gave me an opportunity to be myself.
Yes,
because I was the company REH really gave me creative control of it, and I don't know if that's for the best, because as much as I wanted to be a rock star, I was also kind of a goof, and that's that's my predicament. I don't get up in the morning feeling like a goof.
None of us do.
It's not. I'd feel very normal. I don't feel like, I'm going to get up today and be ridiculous. It's just I don't know. I guess, man, I my love of music is a totally serious, non-goofy thing, but I guess some of what goes on in the entertainment business and in rock and roll. I mean, Spinal Tap had just come out,
right?
In 1984, and just like anybody, the first time I saw it, it was unsettling,
right?
Because it was like you sort of,
yeah,
exactly. We've been found out. I wish there was a Spinal Tap for everything.
Yes.
I think that every walk of life deserves a Spinal Tap. So the people who are all serious, like, what we're doing is very important. Like,
it's not. It's not.
Let's see Nigel Tufnell's take on this.
Yeah. Well, it is. I mean, during that time, obviously, the Sunset Strip, Hollywood, Rainbow, all that stuff where we were all hanging out and playing in all the different clubs. I mean, because there wasn't an internet, everything was by phones. People were they'd call each other, and then there'd be huge groups of people always down in the Hollywood area looking for whatever band was playing, and like when you guys were playing in the different venues. And one of the things that I remember when it was one of your first albums with Mike Varney. You had gotten that was it a Firebird or Thunderbird? What was that white car?
The T-Bird, yeah,
the T-Bird, yeah. T-Bird, yeah. And I remember, so you're on your way to San Francisco. You stop
that I know what the story you can tell, but that was like a. No, it wasn't nearly as cool. The 62 T-Bird was later when I got a publishing deal.
It was the one with the steering wheel that moved.
Oh, that was it.
That was it.
Well, let me continue the story, and I'll tell you whether it's the right car or not.
Okay. Well, I remember it was the white one, and you came by to pick up your amps because you were heading to San Francisco, right? And you were paying me to do all this stuff, because we changed all the tubes,
getting all the amps ready.
Yeah, exactly. And you were sitting there, and you were all serious, and you looked at the left, whatever was left in your hand in money. You go, "Will this get me in gas to San Francisco?" And I just turned around and gave you back all your money and said,
"I do remember that." at the very beginning of this interview when you said, like, we're friends. It's like, dude, you gave me the gas money so I could get to the studio.
Well, I couldn't imagine you not getting there. I was like, and then you were so sweet. You were like calling me every couple of days and sending me stuff. Look what we're doing, and we're doing this album. You guys were all excited, and yeah, that car later on, I think you bashed into pieces or something.
Let me clear up the car situation, because I did in fact have that really cool '62 T-Bird with the steering wheel, but it wasn't then.
Oh, it wasn't then. Okay.
That was later when I joined Mr. Big, and Herbie, the manager, was so sick of my bad, awful car that he insisted. He got me some publishing deal I didn't deserve, and I had enough money to get something sort of cool. But that story you're talking about, I had it was a Oldsmobile, I think. I think it was Olds Cutlass or something.
Is that what it was?
My roommate. Okay. And I'd sold my Les Paul to Mike Varney to get the money for the car.
Oh God!
And I mean, there's all kinds of great stories about that car because it was just on its last leg.
I know, and you were driving all that way.
And what was the one? I remember the forward stopped working. Oh. Like in the transmission, you could, the reverse worked, but forward. The only like the fast gears could work. If you could go down a hill
you could
get it to go like over 35 miles an hour, then those gears at that speed would kick in and you'd be all right. But getting it going, it'd be like, just it was really hard to get it at that speed. And my roommate who sold it to me, and I was still living with him, so I think he felt some responsibility because he had sold me the car. I remember calling up, with a phone booth, of course. You got to find a phone booth.
That's right. We didn't have
on foot. You don't know where one is. You just start walking. You're stranded. Hopefully you have a dime.
Right.
You call him up. Hopefully he's home. Answer.
Right. That's right.
And I said, man, the car only reverse works, and I can't get up the on ramp to get home. Can you bring your car and a rope? To tow me home.
Right.
And he's like, where are you? I'll be there. And so, I wait by the side of the road. He finally comes and he just hopped in my car, put it in reverse, and drove backwards down the freeway.
You're kidding.
Until he came to an exit, and then, he's going to reverse the whole time, up the on-ramp into a gas station so we could park it. And then we rode home together, and I got towed to a repair place later.
Well, at least it made it to San Francisco.
Yeah, that was San Francisco was where the tire blew out.
Oh, really?
I remember we went to see Poison on my birthday.
Really?
It was at the Stone, and like 6 people were in the audience, and we were 5 of them. And anyway, they hadn't, they weren't Poison. There was still some band nobody knew about.
Right.
And so we're heading back to the studio where we were all staying, and the tire blows out, and we get out of the car, we go over the side of the road, and there's no spare, but we had tools,
right?
And by some miracle there was an abandoned car
that the tire fit
like 200 feet up in the road. This is the middle. There's no, this is like rural, so 20 miles outside of San Francisco on the way to Katati where the studio is. Nothing anywhere. There's an abandoned car. We pull we have the tools in my trunk, so we pull the tire off, roll it back to my car, and it's the wrong size. The holes don't line up.
Oh no.
So Jeff Martin, who can fix anything with anything, gets the crowbar and just starts knocking lugs off until 3 out of 5 fit on there. And we screwed on, and it's the wrong size. So I'm driving down the freeway, lopsided.
Yeah, but you're moving. That's the button.
Exactly. And we got back to the studio, finished the record, and I drove all the way back to L.A.
with sideways. It? Oh, you did? You drove it back.
And again, when it's working, I sort of put it off. I thought, well, eventually I should probably put the right size tire on, but that's you get much better stories when you're broke and everything you have is ready to explode.
Well, that's what makes life really interesting is everything, right? Because at the time you're hating it, you're hating life, you're really upset, and then when you later go back and look at it, you're like, oh God, I survived that.
I don't know if I was that upset. It was just we got the record done, tires on there, Jeff fixed it.
Right. No, absolutely. You know, a side note on that is back in those days with Mike Varney, you know, there was like a $20,000 deal, right? Something like that, 30,000, I think, was what he was offering for record deals and he recorded the album, right? It was kind of a
it was basically he would offer whatever it would cost to do the record,
right.
And so I mean, the good part is we'd see royalties right away.
Yes.
Well, no, we wouldn't, because we'd have to recoup.
That's right. You'd have to recoup.
Yeah.
But
it wasn't like, sometimes, you know, you read these stories about Van Halen and it's like they get back from their first tour, their album's gone gold, they're, you know, Eddie's legendary, right, and they're in debt $1 million.
That's right. Well, it was common on a lot of the albums that we were bringing stuff into. It was common to spend $500,000 on an album. Yeah.
So that was a good thing is the fact that the budget was small meant that you didn't dig yourself too deep of a hole.
Well, and the reason
you had a fighting chance of digging your way out of it. You know?
Well, the reason I bring that up is right now you'd want a $30,000 deal. I mean, it's like, you know, because pretty much after Nirvana getting a multi-gazillion albums on a $10,000, you know, recording.
I'm amazed and thankful that, you know, because I'm still on a label. You know, I'm on Mascot.
Yeah,
Records, awesome. and somehow they do it. And I'm you know, if somebody said like, Paul, you have to make a living as a record company, I'd be like, oh no,
yeah. Oh, I know it. You know,
but somehow they manage it. So I really try. You know, when they ask me to promote or, you know, work to, you know, market the record, I'm like, I'll do anything you guys want just to keep you alive, you know, because, you know, I'm happy you're here.
Absolutely. So here's a shot. This is with you with Mr. Big. Mr. Big came about. I did you know Billy from GIT, or how did you meet Billy before this?
Well, I used to go see Billy in Talus.
Oh, okay.
Which was the band that he formed. You know, he grew up in Buffalo, New York.
Right.
He formed that band in Buffalo, and they used to play in Pittsburgh all the time. And so that I probably saw Talus, I don't know, you know, 8 times or something, and they were great. I loved Talus, and but, you know, of course Billy's playing, but the whole band was great. Songs were cool, and then he joined David Lee Roth, which of course was amazing. And he used to stop by. Well, I met him because I actually one of my copy bands opened up for Talus once, and, you know, I was probably 15 years old. I was like, oh, this is my big chance, you know, for Billy to hear me. You know, I was like, while I was playing the set, I'm like, oh, I hope he hears me play something. And you know, I think he took a little bit of notice, like, oh, that, you know, the guy in the opening band is trying to do something impressive. But then when I went out to LA and was teaching at MI, he'd come and do clinics, and you know, I can't remember the logistics of it, but somehow we would end up in a room jamming. And I think we connected because we knew a lot of the same. We're both song guys, you know. He'd name off any song from the Beatles to Accept, and I'd be able to, you know, come up with, you know, I'd be able to, you know, add out a part, and the same thing with him. You know, I'd say, oh, how about this Rolling Stones tune, and he'd know it, you know, and so that was our connection, because we're pretty far apart in age and obviously an accomplishment. You know, he had already, you know, he was already, you know, on top of the world, you know, in the business. And I was just starting out, but you know, that connection of knowing a lot of songs was really what brought us together.
Well, your style really, both of you guys, your styles worked out perfectly, because he was into playing lead bass and doing all the tapping on his bass, and you were doing the same thing at the time, and the style really worked out well for both of you guys to put Mr. Big together. And also, you got a monster set of guys. I mean, come on, you know, amazing players, and it just, like I said, during that time, there was great art being created in Hollywood. Just great art. Every month we were hearing, oh, look, check this out, or check this out. You know, people were creating really, really amazing music. And I want to bring up a point. So I don't know if you remember, but one day I came over and pick you up to go have lunch. We were going to go have lunch, and this was back in the day when all cars had cassette players. And
oh, right.
and you show up, and you used to always, you'd have music that you'd play me, like, hey, check out, I just wrote this, or I just wrote that. And you had just finished a demo in your house of a Green Tinted 60 Mind. Yeah. And you said, check this out. And you pop in the cassette, and you had done it, banging on cardboard boxes for the drums. And it actually sounded great. I mean, it was amazing, that lick, and which turned out to be just an amazing song when everybody put everything together on it. But I remember those days. It was like, that was fun. I mean, you did that stuff out of your house.
Well, when I moved to LA, my roommate had a 4-track cassette recorder, and that was amazing. Like, as a kid, I didn't know about the existence of multi-track. I didn't know that you could overdub. I just thought, a record was, the band goes in the studio and they play, and that's how they sound. And, of course, later I discovered, like, oh, they layered things on, and they had like more than one chance to get it right. And, that was a big discovery for me. And then to actually be able to own a recorder where you could do that yourself and not have to, like, have your budget, whatever it is, to go into a studio. I mean, these days, of course, that seems like nothing. Like you could play overdub multi-track on your iPhone, but back then it was like, man, how am I? That's like what the what the gods do. A mere mortal like me. How could I ever overdub? And so I remember my roommate had a cassette 4-track, and then Tascam came up with an 8-track cassette player. And I remember you had linked them together. You had like
right. Yeah, I had 3 of them together
before the ADAT. It was sort of like the precursor to the ADAT.
That's right.
But to have 8 tracks, I mean, there were 8-track reel-to-reel things, but again, that just seemed like
it was too much.
You had to have a lot of money, and then a mixer and microphones, and where you're going to put the drums,
right?
And so, to have like a drum machine, because those had just come out, and an 8-track cassette recorder, you could start doing pretty good demos by overdubbing, and that to me was like really exciting. You just couldn't do that before. And also the like what do you call it? The dysfunctional relationships had begun in Mr. Big, so it was also a chance to be able to work through a song without having to argue with anybody.
That's right. You just show it to him. It's done.
Like, well, I kind of want the drum part to be like this, so it's like, well, actually, Pat was always easy,
of course.
But whatever it was, I could sort of have my vision of the way the arrangement should be without having to, negotiate.
Right.
And so those two things together, the fact that you can do it at all, overdub at home, and then you can do it in a peaceful.
Right. Well, and that progresses to like your own. After a while, you started having your own really serious studios, and in your house.
And that's getting to the point where I still have a studio and I can overdub all the time, but I really like to do as little production as possible. Like if it's more than one, and sometimes I do more than one take, but it's then. Whenever I start doing more than one take, it's like, well, I don't really know it, do I? This is just disappointing. In my own preparation or abilities, like I should have shown up knowing what to do.
Well, and there's also a synergy when you have multiple people, especially in your band. They all put little pieces or say something that triggers you, that makes you do this, and creates.
If you can manage to do it and not fight, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's magic. It's really magical. Well, I'm trying to stay in somewhat of a time frame, but right after Metaltronix, I went up to Ampeg, and we did some really fun. This was some outtakes there with Rick Gould, and
oh man,
remember when they dressed me up as a mad scientist, and then we did several ads at the same time.
Do you have a photo of the Punky Meadows one?
I do. I do. And the thing is, what people don't realize is you were dressed up as Punky Meadows and did,
I use Ampeg because Punky used Ampeg.
That's right. and dressed you up completely like Punky Meadows. And I'll sit here and see if I can find that picture. The funny, I love your expression on the far left. These are outtakes from the ad. That one of the things that was really fun was after we did the Punky Meadows show, photo shoot, we all went out that night dressed in our.
I stayed in character.
You stayed as Punky Meadows.
Went to dinner as Punky.
Yeah, that was really funny. I'll in a minute I'll see if I can round up, because it's in the computer behind me. But the picture of you, as because you had a long black wig, and the other thing is you're holding the albums with them, and you've crossed out Punky in all of them except for you, right? Yeah. It was
the only Punky matters.
It only Punky matters, and it was fun.
Well, I feel right now the obligation to play a Punky Meadows riff.
Please do.
I haven't played one in a long time, but let me see. I remember the bass line. But that wasn't the cool one. The cool one was rock and roll. They're gonna see it tonight. Rock and roll. They're gonna see it tonight. There we go. Yeah. Barry Brandt was killer drummer.
I found it here. Let me.
You found the Punky shot?
Yeah, I found the Punky shot. Give me a second.
Okay. Brace yourself.
Yes. Here you go. It's going to be 1 sec here. This was great. This was a.
The song, for anybody that doesn't know Punky Meadows. There we go. That's good.
Yeah, sorry, buddy, for the pause. It took me a minute. It took me a minute to go find it.
The Angel logo, if you turn it upside down, it's the same.
Yeah, it says Angel both directions.
It's such a great logo.
And it was like this. So we went. The funny thing is you went out like this, and I went out like the mad scientist kind of thing. And we went. I think we went and had Thai food or something like that, and went out that evening. And,
as you do,
and it was fun.
No more ridiculous than this hat.
No, well, the thing is that
my hat doesn't even fit in the frame. Like I gotta get.
It's kind of like
I'm gonna make some apple butter and build a barn.
It does look like that. It does.
Well, that's what it said. And then when I ordered it, it was like I started, because I thought, man, the Amish people must just be like, they must just be like laughing and going, see, we had it right the whole time.
Well,
you guys get dumb cell phones,
Well, one of the things it's funny because this picture.
Don't underestimate building a barn. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say the funny about this picture I'm going to show right now is I'm wearing a hat like that, and like one of the things we definitely like to do was eat. I remember this is one of the well-known Indian restaurants that was down off Ventura Boulevard.
Oh yeah,
remember that
Ganga Din?
Yeah, and we went out because that was kind of like the thing to do. Once we were doing music in the studio, eating. It was kind of like that was great. That was a great shot.
We were on that side of the culture fence. On the other side was the drug people.
That's right. No,
I never knew the drug people, but I imagine they've got their photos too.
Well, yeah, no, well, that is true. It was, we weren't on the drug side, and it was more of on the fun side, and on the, because there was that Thai food place we used to all go down off of Cahuenga or something like that. One of the things I wanted to put up here, I was looking for a bunch of. Like you've been so prolific on your albums. It's easier for me just to print it out so people could get an idea of how much material you've worked on and how many albums, not only your personal albums, but, Racer X albums. And I know you put out a lot of albums in Japan. I know that there was stuff that went out in Japan that didn't come into America, and you just, you've been busy.
That's well, I always figure if I'm not busy, I'm going to end up either at the Burger King or the Chem Lab. So,
well, I doubt that's going to happen. You know.
Well, I would never get a job at Burger King because I'm too deaf. So I'd screw up the orders. And the Chem Lab, I probably don't have the brain for it anymore.
Well, so a lot of people don't know that. I remember getting a call from you when the earthquake hit in the valley, and you were like, "I'm out of here. I'm gone." You picked up that evening and was moving to Las Vegas.
6 favorite guitars in the car, and it's right. Las Vegas.
Yeah, you were pretty much there. That was a nice place. You had a nice studio in that home.
That was, at that time you could get a lot of money, or you could get a lot of house for the money. And ADATs had come out,
right?
So
that's right.
So I was man, I just got to get a big enough place to have a drum kit, and I was just looking for some rooms where I could build the studio, because I had a few ADATs, and I thought, man, if I get a couple microphones and some outboard gear, I can make albums for the cost of electricity,
right?
And and that ended up not being the case, because I'd always hire people, hire musicians to play. Right. But I thought, worst case, I could play stuff myself.
Well, it was a great location. I when I was looking through stuff, I found this here. You can explain this one here. Remember the money suit?
Oh yeah, that was one of the least expensive suits I had made.
It's real money that you sewed onto.
It was all ones.
It's all ones, yeah. But
if you think about it, it's about $35.
But it was great. I mean, it was great. It fit the video you guys were doing. That was a fun video shoot. That was downtown. What song was that?
That was for Wind Me Up.
Was that Wind Me Up?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that I remember us all showing up down there and bringing stacks and stacks for you to have behind you, and that like, again, it was fun. There was it's great when your companies have budgets. You know what I mean? Where it's like, you do a nice video. Like nowadays, it's
great, and it's great until you have to pay it back.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. There's that. There's the dark side of that. Is that
when I think of how much budget I put it, because you gotta have to do most of the stuff yourself now,
right?
And I think the equipment is cheaper. It's probably a lot less expensive, because lighting, the technology has changed, all the LED stuff now. Cameras, certainly the technology is way different than it was, in 1989.
Right.
And so, you can, with your cell phone, you can shoot pretty good stuff. And, you hire somebody with a couple real cameras, and you can get pretty amazing results. And of course, the editing.
Right.
Before you'd have to have, rent the studio to edit. So,
the capability that we have both in the studio, just like my studio behind me. I mean, that opening song, I recorded it here. I mean, you have all this capability that's available to you. And the same thing with, I mean, you can shoot a movie if you just have actors around you. I mean, they're doing it on their iPhones. So, your last one of your last projects, which I got to see you when you came through town, which was great. The band where you play all the vocals on guitar.
Oh yeah,
that was really fun. What a great album. All your stuff lately has just been really great. I love it. I mean, I really do. And I want to commend you on it, and say you're moving in a great direction, and it looked like you guys were having a lot of fun.
Well, it's nice to be able to say that after, the successful record or tour, because before you do any of those things, it's complete terror and humiliation. You just think, oh geez, am I ever going to be able to finish this song? Is this going to sound any good? So it's that constant battle of after you finish, oh yeah, that was the nice thing you did. Just so you know, before when I'm putting it together, I'm still I'm no good. Oh, this is terrible.
You know, we all suffer from imposter syndrome, right? We think, oh, I'm not that person. I can't be, you know, it's like,
How,
but
how did I ever get the last one done? Like, oh,
that's right. No, you know, because you even, you know, you did your own version of Green Tinted 60s Mind with you playing
yeah, vocal melodies on guitar.
all the vocals, and that is great. There was a great piece I saw on YouTube, but I'm not getting in trouble anymore showing any YouTube pieces because, you know, they immediately flag you and go, how dare you show anything? It's like, okay, no, you know, because I was going to show a piece of that because it was a great solo with you doing the Green Tinted.
Well, it's interesting to have come up in the era of the kind of the Van Halen era, and really, you know, sort of Hendrix, Jimmy Page, Van Halen, the whole thing, where the singer has the role of doing the melody, and then the guitar player's role is to back up the singer. So, you know, well, the singer's doing his thing, you know, you get your low riff to leave some room for the singer,
right?
And then when it's your turn, you know, when the guitar solo comes up, you don't necessarily play like a recognizable melody. It's more like, here's my stuff, you know, and you make like crazy noises and you sort of,
right,
you know, you want to create something fiery. And I loved that as a kid, but because of that, I never learned how to play a melody. You know, like the bands that would play melodies, like Boston, you know, I wasn't really that interested in playing. I loved that part of the song. I wouldn't change it. You know, I didn't want to like erase that and have Van Halen come in and do tapping there. You know,
right.
But that wasn't what I wanted to be as a guitar player, because I thought, well, the singer's doing that, and let him do it. But then as I, you know, sort of searched, you know, on my musical journey, and you know what probably was touring with Joe Satriani doing G3 and watching how he really takes on the role of a singer, but he's a guitar player, you know,
right?
And you know, and he's not. I mean, he's, you know, can tread like anybody, but he plays the melody.
Right.
He's the singer on guitar, and certainly Jeff Beck. You know, you know, there's people who have done that, but I wasn't one of them, and I've always loved. I've wanted to be a singer. I've loved listening to singers, and but I thought, you know, I do play this thing. You know, maybe I could figure out how to play a melody, and it's really different way of approaching the instrument, which is nice because it gives you something to do.
Right.
After playing as long as I have, if I just, you know, played the way I played when I was 22 forever and just try to, you know, like maintain that, I would get so bored. You know, it'd be like, oh, I mean, I was bored of it then. You know, like I remember being 22 and go like, well, there's that again. You know, and so to be able to like sort of go into my my vocalist heart and figure out, you know, I mean, like something as simple as "Joy to the World." You know, the Jeremiah was a bullfrog. You know. And
that's awesome.
I never could. I was not ready to do anything like that as a younger person, and not because it's harder, just because it's different. I mean, it's a more horizontal way of playing. You have to slide into stuff all the time, and you know, practicing scales up and down. You don't get that,
right?
So it's fun to find this new sound. Same thing with like the slide. You know. To be able to, because you get a different voice from that.
Well, and I was watching on that video with the Green Tinted one, as the people were commenting. I read in some of the comments, and they were flipping out about your slide that sits on the guitar, right?
Oh, the magnet. Yeah, I got just glue a magnet on, or not glue. I use double.
Yeah, so it sticks on the guitar. That's right. It was like,
well, that way you can have, you know, you're not stuck with one voice,
right? And you have to go find it, right? I mean, or either a crew guy hands you a slide, or it's sitting on your stand.
Yeah, I remember having like the mic stand thing with a little,
that's right.
But still, that like the amount of time it takes you to put it back.
Oh man,
it prevents you from using it because you're like, that's too much trouble.
Do you remember those brass slides? You know, and I remember
like little ones.
No, just the big brass slides that they used to have, right? That you put on your.
There's all sorts of materials,
right?
Ones and brass ones. And...
So I was playing a gig and I had a 100-watt Marshall in my brass. I used to put it. You'd put it on the top of the head. You walk over.
Oh, it heat up.
It fell into the grill, right? Remember the back of the Marshall has the grill, and my part comes and I run over there and I see that it's in the grill and I put it in my finger and it's literally, for the show, my skin is melting while I'm soloing, and I throw this thing off. It's like
hot potato.
Hot potato. It was like it was hot, like really painful, but rock and roll. You got to do the show, kind of thing. So, what are you working on now? What's the latest?
I bought an upright bass.
I heard about that.
I've got it upstairs. I mean, the stuff I've done on my Instagram is like all fiction. I'll play a Rickenbacker through a loop pedal, so it records what I play. Then I just pretend to play it, and half the people think it's real. But I actually really play it.
Right.
But my wife. Pretty good jazz piano player. I mean, she's comes from classical, so classical sort of her roots. But she's been studying jazz a bit, and she sounded really good. So I'll play along with her. And it's funny because like I can actually read the chart if it's bass, because you don't have to do the whole chord.
Right. That's right.
I'm not
a single notes.
With jazz, it's the chords are more complicated. You got to add ninths and 13ths and sharp 11s, but with bass you don't have to do that. You just one note and maybe one. If you have time for another one, I can usually suss that out by ear. And plus it's kind of like playing drums, because
it's so rhythmic,
big and percussive.
It's rhythmic,
And man, I just have the biggest smile on my face whenever I'm playing the upright bass, and it's kind of a good size for me because I'm a tall person,
right?
So I really have fun doing that. I've got a drum kit here. I've been playing that a lot on guitar. That's a good question. I've been doing a lot of demos where I just do everything first take, and I don't really even have a song. I just sort of jam. So it's sort of like, but I like the way they sound. Like when I finish it, and I finish, I'll start with, I've got some structure, but not. I'll just have like a general, the key, the riff. Maybe the place to go, but it's real simple. And I'll play drums, no click. I just have the song in my head, and I'll overdub like maybe a rhythm guitar, and then solo and bass, and so it's like really listenable.
So is the bass the vocal on the song, or do you have
it's all just jamming? I mean, it's I don't really have a melody for a lot of it. It's more just like. Endless soloing, but it's soloing where everybody, even though it's overdubbed, I'm always listening,
right?
And I'm really trying to stay true to the first take thing, and because of that, there's like way more mistakes than I would ever allow on a real record. But what you may like give up for not being perfect, you gain in all this stuff I would never have played. All these cool little moments, and a lot of times when I make a record, I never listen to it afterwards. It's like, for whatever reason, I'm just, I did it. That's enough.
That's right.
And these I really enjoy listening to. So I don't know if anybody else ever liked them, but I've probably made 2 albums worth of this stuff. And
no, I've heard
it's sort of like a sketch pad for me, and just keeping the momentum of playing while I figure out what to do.
Well, the reason I knew about it because I've heard nothing but great people talk about how much they enjoy it, seeing the with you doing the bass stuff, and that it was great. And that's how I heard about it, because it was like they're going, hey, yeah, that stuff Paul's doing, with the bass is awesome, and no, it's great, because that's what you want to be, is creative, period. That's it. Creative. Be creative all the time. It makes life go by way easier, than not, you know.
Yeah.
So
Well, and of course, I have my school.
yes,
That's by the the thing that always keeps me. That's like my job, and it's a really nice one to have. Where I have an online school.
oh, cool. What's it called?
It's the company's called Artist Works.
Okay,
They probably have about 40 teachers there. All instruments.
right.
They if you want to learn cello, you can go to Artist Works and there'll be the top level cello teacher. But I teach rock guitar
Right.
at Artist Works, and I've been doing it for almost 10 years, and it's not live, which is better.
Right.
The student sends in a video, and I watch it, and the reason it's better that it's not live is like I've got a minute to think about the answer, and so my answer is better.
Right.
Because sometimes have a little time to think about it. I mean, sometimes I'll take an hour to work out an answer if I either don't know the answer or if I want to like research something for myself. But mostly I'd kind of know what to show them right away, and then I'll make a customized lesson just for them based on what I heard, and then send that, and those two videos get put in they get paired together in what's called a video exchange, and that gets put on the site, and everybody, of course the student can watch it, but so can everybody else.
Oh, that's great.
I've done over 12,000 of those.
12,000.
Yeah, and they're all in the archives. So
think about that, 12,000.
So anything you want to just labeling 12,000 videos.
Exactly. I was gonna say, well, you could do is you could play a different guitar for each one of them, because I think you have that many now, don't you, with all the different models. What's your latest model that's come out?
Oh, the latest one that come out is actually in the shop because I'm having a magnet put in it.
Okay. And what's the shape of it? Is it
the latest one I just got from the custom shop? I'll grab it. I haven't been playing it for the video because the way the lighting is, I get it. It kind of blurs it out.
God, it's gorgeous.
It gets overexposed. Actually, it's looking all right now.
You know what's interesting? It's got the binding like BC Rich. Remember BC Rich's with
yeah. Well, it's based on this. That's a
yeah.
That's an Ibanez ST300, which it's 1979.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously BC Rich influenced.
Yeah, because I was going to say is
and then they made me
it looks very like Seagull-ish from the BC Rich's. Yeah, BC Rich is going to do not BC Rich, but a guy is going to put out a BC Rich book about the history of BC Rich. It's going to be it's really interesting.
That's cool. I actually endorsed BC Rich for about 3 months.
Really? I didn't know that.
When the first NAMM show that I went to, I hooked up with Wayne Charvel.
Oh, okay.
Who was obviously the founder of Charvel.
Right.
And he had done a deal with Jackson Guitars where he had sold his name, Charvel, to Jackson. So he couldn't use his own name anymore.
Right, that's right.
He had to come up with a different brand, but he was still, the cat.
Yeah, of course he was. Yeah.
So I met him at the NAMM show. And he's like, "Yeah, I'll build you a guitar," because he'd be playing. And he was excited about my playing, and I was excited about it. Of course,
right.
Van Halen was famous for Charvel. So what did I do? He built me. It was like an Epiphone copy because I was playing those Epiphones back then.
That's right.
And it was a nice guitar, and I played it, and everything was cool. And then about 3 months after that, he called me up and he went, "Oh, I just joined BC Rich. So do you want to come be a BC Rich endorser?" And I always thought BC Riches were really cool. I'd never played one in my life, but I thought they looked great. And I thought, well, if Wayne went there, I'll be stay true to him because he's been really supportive. And so I went and I got a pink Mockingbird, which looked amazing, but it was the thing I didn't realize is as cool as that body style looks, it like jabs into your ribs.
That's right.
It's not the most comfortable guitar to play.
Right.
It's like you kind of have to deal with some discomfort, and so I was kind of like lukewarm on the guitar because it was painful to play the thing. And then about 3 months later, he called me up again and went, "Oh, I went to Gibson now." Right. And I thought, he's kind of moving around.
Yeah,
much.
Right.
And also at the time, this is like 1985 or 86. The Gibson was sort of like, your father's guitar. It was
right.
Like I wanted to be cool, cutting edge, something new in the 80s. So
right.
Gibson to me was kind of stodgy. And so I was like, I don't know. And so that's when I hooked up with Ibanez. And but anyway,
Ibanez has been awesome.
This one's like an Iceman, but upside down. I call it the Fireman. And but obviously, the Woods kind of BC Rich influence, or influence from their old
it's gorgeous. It's
studio
gorgeous.
guitars. Yeah. Killer tones.
Boy, that sounds great.
I still have to put the magnet on them.
Yeah. Why not? You got, of course you do.
I've got my tape collection right up here and a stack of magnets back there. It likely will happen.
So do you just stick it on? Is it a sticker type of thing? Or
well, it depends. If the guitar's got a pick guard,
yeah,
then I'll have my repair guy route out like a little cavity
and put it behind it,
epoxy it in there,
right?
And then you don't see it because the pick guard's on top. So that's kind of slick. For where there's not a pick guard, or if the guitar's like a funny shape there, if it's like an SG or something. I've never put one on an SG, but you could.
Yeah.
You get a thinner magnet, so it'll it's easier to set there, and then you just get some of this. It's like 3M.
Yeah. It's what they use to put bumpers on cars. Yeah.
Yeah, it's foamy. So it's thicker than your regular tape, and you can only you can't do it again. Like once you put it on there.
Yeah,
you can get it off. It won't damage. I mean, I've got this phone to remove it. What is this thing? It's a spreader, like a plastic.
Right.
If you want to get this stuff off and without damaging your finish, just get this plastic spreader thing for like whatever that. What do they use that for?
Putty. It's a
putty spreader. So that'll get it off, and then you use make sure to use some gaffer tape to wrap around the magnet itself, because the magnets are really dangerous.
Really?
And I'm totally serious, because you like do not double task when you're working with the magnets, because you won't realize like the other things around that are metal,
right?
And they will shoot across the table and like either give you take a hunk of skin off, or if they hit hard enough, they'll shatter into these like
fragments,
sharp pieces.
So are they neodymium or they're
neodymium? Yeah, and you can get them in different strains. I get the strong ones, which are like N52.
Okay.
And the thicker they are, the stronger they are. The strongest ones I get are 2 inches long, which match the slide. I use 2-inch slides, and a 1/4 inch thick and a 1/2 inch wide.
Right.
And those are powerful. If you put one of those on top, that's probably too much. You have a hard time getting the slide off. So for that, I would go half the thickness. I'd go with like an 1/8 inch thick, and then and you can even go skinnier, and they're really strong.
No, it works great. It works great because you did it when you were here in Austin. You had it already on your guitars, and it's perfect. It's right there. It's right on your guitar. You grab it.
There is some learning curve to get your left hand to grab it, because if you're right-handed, you instinctively grab with your right hand.
Right.
And every time I give one of my guitars with a slide magnet and show it to somebody, the first thing they do is they put the guitar on and they grab with their right hand. It's like, no, it's the whole thing. Let me grab one.
Yeah, it's the smooth of action, right? That's the.
Yeah, so this one's got it in the pick guard.
Right.
And so So it's
That's
a
awesome.
little thwonk noise, but live, you probably don't hear that. And if you do, it's a thwonk never hurt anybody.
Who cares? I mean, it's all part of the show, right? Yeah. It's whatever sounds you're making. It's gonna be different, obviously, if you're recording it, but that might drive you crazy after a while, especially for us, right? Something that we do, you're gonna hear on a recording. It's like, oh no, I hear it over again.
Well, the thing that I've been battling with recording is the true bypass, the click.
Yes,
on pedals.
That's right.
And it's never really been a problem, except I did a Christmas album, and a lot of the Christmas songs I'm playing more quietly,
right?
Because it's not like full blast metal the whole time. I'm trying to like play a little more, the traditional melody or whatever. And I was doing that like quieter than I just did there,
right?
And if I suddenly needed to sustain a note, I would click on the pedal, and because I'm kind of quiet, you'd hear
pop.
It.
You pop.
And so I ended up. I mean, I have next time I go to the studio, I'll do it. But I think the best solution ends up being the Boss line selector.
Yes, because what it is people don't understand what happens when on true bypass. Everything's out of the circuit when you actually switch it. Your input, your output, and the input and the output of the device are completely detached. Yeah. And what happens is the voltage potential, either on the input or the output, that's the popping you're hearing is when you're clicking in. And on the switching devices, like you're talking about, they actually use either LDRs or relays, but they do it in a way that either they connect before they break, or they break before they connect. And what it does is it keeps that potential from popping. And it's just what you're hearing is the voltage. You're bringing either the voltage up or down, because it's going to also depend if you're playing when you push the button, right? Because if you're playing, you won't hear the pop as much as if you're just clicking
but one of the solutions was surprising, because it ended up not being a solution. There was a pedal that a company called Lely makes, and they make good stuff. It's like expensive, and it's all super duper parts. And I love their they've got like a splitter, AB. Well, it has no switch on it. It's just if you want to it's like a super duper Y chord.
Right.
So you can have one thing in and two things out. It's got a phase switch and a ground lift. And it's great. So I was using one of those, and then I looked, and they have one with a foot switch where you can, it's got a loop, so you can put whatever pedal you want in the loop and then turn it on and off. And they advertise like no pop. So okay, that's the one. So I got that one, and it doesn't pop. But there's a drop in signal. That's right. And you'd never hear it if you're not playing.
Right.
If you're not playing, it's like, oh, this is perfect. I hit it. It's totally smooth. But if you're sustaining a chord and you hit it, it's just like a little, it dips for a second. It's like, well, I don't want that. So
because what they're doing is they're connecting before they switch, so that they bring the potential down, and that's what you're hearing. Yeah, it's one way to stop the popping, but it does do what you're saying. And
but the Boss one seems good. The line selector.
That's right.
So and I also always use that for the wah-wah, because I've never been good at that, trying to get the switch to turn on the wah-wah, and you can't tell if you really did it. And
that's right.
And then these days, of course, it's not playing live as much. I'm always performing and sitting down.
Right.
And to try to get a wah-wah to click on and off while you're sitting down is almost impossible.
Right.
So I just put it in the loop of the Boss line selector, and that way I use that as the bypass.
Yeah.
And then I just leave the wah-wah on all the time, and I don't never have to deal with that little switch in the back. And it works great. And almost like, having the slide here means I'm going to be a better slide player, because I just, it's more convenient to put it on and use it.
Yeah.
Same thing with the wah-wah. I'm a way better wah-wah player, because I'm like not, because before that I'd be like, if I might hit it, and I'm not sure if it's going to turn on. I'm scared of the thing just because of the bypass.
Well, also, it doesn't start every time trebly. right? You can have it kicked back and start on the low end and move forward instead of going always.
It's always got to
be, and then and you could have it preset. Plus, you could preset it right in a position and come in and play. Yeah, no, it's I remember seeing this one guitar player that didn't want to mess with that. So when he wasn't using the wah-wah, he just pushed it all the way to treble, and that was his sound.
Oh man!
And then he'd walk up to it and rock it back to do the wah-wah, and it's like, don't you hear that? It sounds like an ice pick, just eating me. It's like, no, he didn't care, just pushed it forward.
I've definitely had sound checks where I roll into the gig, plug in the rig, it's like, sounds kind of funny today, sit there for like 45 minutes tweaking the EQ on the amp, go back and like, it's still funny, but it's a little better, and then you go, oh, damn, the wall has been on the whole time.
Yeah, that's true. Or anything on the pedal board, right? You're like, oh God, I forgot this or I forgot, yeah, absolutely.
Well, something like if it's a phase shifter or something, you can tell because it's moving.
Right.
You're not going to blame the amp if it's a phase shifter, but the wah-wah, it's like something's just a little off and kind of trebly, and I don't know what.
A lot of wah companies have tried to do the sensing thing, and it doesn't work. It just there's nothing like, and plus the same thing goes. Nothing sounds as good as the old timey wah-wahs. All that analog stuff just has a thing to it that, sorry, but the digital, it's good, you can use it, but it doesn't have that, it doesn't move your soul, right? It doesn't have that thing to it that analog, as we've gone around that circle many times, which is kind of funny because you were saying, now that last thing you did where you did the vocals and you did it on guitar, you were saying as a kid you did vocals on guitar. It's kind of a circle. It's kind of a circle thing, it's like kind of interesting that we gravitate to do the stuff that we've done, right?
Yeah.
And no, that's awesome, Paul. I'll tell you, we're going to have to do a part 2 because we didn't even touch upon Japan and the TV shows and all that stuff. Because if anybody really wants a kick, go look up Paul playing on these Japanese TV shows, like Name That Tune and all that stuff where you they play the songs and you sit there and tell what song it is, like with so many notes. And there was some fun stuff
Well, it's interesting being in a situation where you just have no idea what's going on.
Right.
I mean, that one, I think they gave me a little credit because that was Marty Friedman's show.
Right.
And Marty would be, he would give me some. He speaks English, obviously, as well as Japanese. So before the show, he'd tell me what was going on. And but I was on a lot of other shows that I don't know if they're on YouTube or not. But there was one show. It was all with idols,
right?
Like with these Japanese television idols, and they'd have a band,
right?
And as my record company knew I was staying in Japan for a while, so they're like, "Hey, we can get you on this show with the idols. You want to do it? See, it'll be good promo." And the band was good, actually. Like they had like a lot of the top Japanese studio musicians, and we would just play whatever the hit of the week was, or a guest singer would come on, we'd play their song. So it actually, I got a lot of good practice reading chord charts because I hadn't done a lot of that before, and with so much new material, I couldn't, because usually I memorize it and listen, but for this stuff it was just like, man, we got 5 new songs today. Okay, what's a C6,
That's right. No, it's great, and obviously you speak Japanese really well, and well enough because you're speaking on these shows in Japanese.
I was actually reading cue cards.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously, the enunciation is the hard part, right? Because you can.
Well, the hard part is speaking the language. The pronunciation is surprisingly easy because it's consistent. English, the pronunciation is ridiculous.
Right.
English is really inconsistent and complicated, and pulls from all these different languages and mixes it into a big soup.
Right.
And often the way a word is pronounced is nothing. You know, we got all the silent letters.
Right.
You know, a word like, you know, what's what I saw the other day, like knight, like a, you know, person that rides a horse and has a weapon.
That's right.
You know, and wears a metallic suit. You know, it starts with a K.
Right.
You know, you don't say the K. Then you have GHT at the end. You don't say the G.
Right.
Yeah. And the I, you know, sometimes it's pronounced like I, but sometimes it's it.
Right.
You know, thin. You know, so how do you know? And so the English is crazy.
Yeah.
In terms of pronunciation. Japanese is dead on consistent.
Okay.
So so, you know, that it's actually really, if you read the phonetic alphabet, I learned it, you know, not fluently, but I memorized the sounds in, I don't know, a month or something, and I could read phonetic Japanese, and not because I'm a genius, but because it's like, it's not changing, you know, it's not like weird English.
Right. Now, I don't know if people know, but you definitely lived there for a while, and you spent some time there.
Yeah, well, it was my hope is like that was a place where I had some success.
Right.
So I thought, you know, maybe I want to go live where I'm successful. You know?
Oh, well, you know, the time that I've spent in Japan, they love you big time. I mean, you're like, to them, you know, I remember it's all people would talk about. It was either you or Akira, right? I mean, Akira is from there, right? So obviously they're his guy. That's the guy, right? But for being an outsider, they love you big time. And if I was ever being talked to, the first thing they would talk to me about was you, right? And it was, so people there definitely love you, and that's why you have a lot of albums that were, I think, Japan only, aren't they? Like you released them in Japan, and
there's a couple. I mean, they would eventually find their way out over here, but I would really focus on there at the time.
Yeah, no,
and it was also that was when, you know, the style of music that I play was like, might as well have been banned in America. You know, it was you know, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, or you know, Janet Jackson and Mariah Carey.
Right.
And I love Janet Jackson and Mariah Carey.
Right. No. It was, and I loved going over there. They were very sweet. Everybody was really kind, and it was a fun place. You know, the food obviously is awesome, and it was real. I mean, I remember having Indian food in Japan, and it was really, really good.
It's good Indian food in Japan.
It is good Indian food in Japan. You know, and I remember, you know, for a while there, I was, you know, being a tourist and eating at the, you know, because whatever was close by the hotel. But then finally they hit me to the noodle places, and, you know, so it didn't cost me $1 million a night to eat. But anyway, I digress. That was fun, and like I said, I could sit here and talk to you for hours, and I thank you so much for you know, coming on and sharing, because, you know, you're special to me. I've known you a long time, and I definitely, when you come into town, please, you know, call me and well,
are you still in Texas or Kansas?
Yeah, I'm in Austin, still in Austin. Yeah,
right on.
Yeah, so I know you've moved again, but I'm still in Austin. I like Austin. It's in the center. It's easy to get to east and west, and you know, and it normally stays warm. You know, right now though it is cold outside, so we're going through that weird winter that's happening across the United States. So, but yeah, it's still you know, I don't know. Clubs are closing.
Just put your brass slide on top of your Marshall,
that'll
warm right up.
Just hold it close. But yeah, no, a lot of the clubs are closing down. So I don't think the club that you played here is still here. A lot of 6th Street is closed, and hopefully it comes back, and, you know, the music scene starts coming back here, and it may, hopefully they're talking about doing more stuff south of Austin, like down further south, and a little bit further away from the college, kind of setting up, because the down by the college has become more of just a beer, you know, music beer joints, right? Not really the old timey clubs where you get to play, and hopefully that stuff changes. But hopefully you come through, and if you come through down San Antonio, that's close by. Just, there's a lot of places down San Antonio to play, and
right on.
Hopefully you come out soon, because I'd love to see you. And if I'm ever up in your area, I'll call and tell you. I know that John Page lives not far from you. Page Guitars, he's up in your area.
Oh, cool.
And I've been threatening to come out and visit. So when I come out there, I'll call you and come say hi. At least go have a cup of coffee or something, because it's been a while.
Play with magnets.
Play with magnets. We'll play with toys. It's always fun playing with new toys and that kind of stuff. But again, virtual hug, big old hug to you, man. It'd be great to see you and hang out and spend some time together and keep, the stuff you're doing, just keep doing it. It's awesome.
Oh, thank you so much. That's nice of you to say, Lee.
I know, seriously. It's I would, me, I would just not say anything if I if I didn't like it. I'd just go, great. Yeah,
great.
Man, great.
Remember Racer X?
Yeah, Racer X. Wow, yeah.
Those were good days.
That's right. But it was good days, and it was great music. And like I said early on, both you guys with Bruce and you, you set the bar on dual guitar players way out there for people, and both you guys were doing great work, and it's our history. It's the piece of history that we remember, and it's great. We're both healthy, which is awesome, and we're still working, and that's awesome too. So
absolutely.
I wish you incredible success, and like I said, I could keep talking, but I don't want to take up your whole afternoon, and I'm very excited to have you on, and thank you so much.
Right on. Well, great to talk to you, Lee, and hope to see you again soon.
I'll see you soon.
All right.
All right,
Thanks.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.